Ecstatic to be on your TV screen. Today is the 8th of June, and if I may ask, have you read the latest news around the nation and beyond? If no, then you are in the right place, and if yes, you are equally in the right place, because you are going to get even more on this program, the newspaper headlines. I am Charles Philip Wakolam. All right, the federal government and the states have been doing quite a lot on their different 2020 budgets. We also see an accusation against the IPOB. We'll see about this in a bit as I start with the New Telegraph newspaper. All right, it leads with hard times hit states as 14 governors cut budget by 1.31 trillion naira. Hard times hit states as 14 governors cut budget by 1.31 trillion naira. We have kickers under that top headline. Borno, Enugu, Oyo, Osun, others, mall spending review. Cross River maintains unrealistic 1.1 trillion fiscal plan. All right, details can be found on page 3. Page 3 of the New Telegraph newspaper. And coming down beside the picture we see a breakdown of states 2020 budget reduction. If you get the New Telegraph newspaper, you can get all the details yourself. Bottom strip stories: IPOB spends $85,000 monthly on smear campaigns against Nigeria. This is according to the presidency. Says group causing disaffection with US, UK, Germany, France. Get details of this on page 4. All right, new study raises hope to stop malaria. New study raises hope to stop malaria. You see it on page 25 of New Telegraph newspaper. If you come with me, I move up now just above the lead story and immediately below the New Telegraph masthead. All right, Dana, 1 hour flight to cost between 34,500 naira and 162,000 naira. Lagos sues AGF, National Assembly, over virtual proceedings. That's on page 8. Negligence, Army begins trial of 39 officers, soldiers. You see it on page 3. Grid constraints, 1 trillion naira debt liable for power crisis, says Jenkos. All right, rounding up New Telegraph now, but not without the story above the masthead. CBN unveils healthcare research development grant guidelines. CBN unveils healthcare research and development grant guidelines. Sets 500 million naira limit for manufacturing and 50 million naira for research. Details of this can be found in front page, continued on page 4. Finally, Boa Cement's revenue hits 54.0 billion naira in the first quarter of 2020. All right, you see it on page 4. And now I move to This Day newspaper. This Day newspaper leads with a COVID-19 case. With 38 new COVID-19 cases, Lagos records first slump in 3 months. First slump in 3 months. 260 fresh incidents, raised total to 12,486, with 3,959 discharged, 354 dead. Nigeria imports COVID-19 drugs from Bangladesh. Okay, we have some of the details on front page. It's continued on page 31. Lawan, that's on the bottom strip now. Lawan, international politics undermining Nigeria's fight against insecurity. Right, that story is on page 8 of this day newspaper. I go up now below masthead. Presidency, security checks delaying confirmation of court, says the presidency. Security checks delaying confirmation of appeal court president. Yes, okay, accuses IPOB of misleading US UK on Christian genocide claim. You see details of this on front page, continued on page 30. Okay, let's move up. CBN limits healthcare research grant to 500 million naira. CBN limits healthcare research grant to 500 million naira. Outlines guidelines for intervention scheme. Okay, APC rules out indirect primary in Edo State. That is the last story I'm taking from this day newspaper. APC rules out indirect primary in Edo State. Get it on page 8 of this day newspaper, and that leads us straight to Nigerian Tribune. The Nigerian Tribune newspaper also leads with IPOB story. IPOB using Christianity to wage war against Nigeria, says presidency. Spends £85,000 monthly on campaigns. £85,000 monthly on campaigns. Okay, you see it on page 2 of Nigerian Tribune. And above the lead story, Edo Guba, fireworks begin in court over APC primaries. Fireworks begin in court over APC primaries. You will see it on page 23 of Nigerian Tribune. And the next story beside it, federal government secures $1.45 billion fund to complete Ajaokuta steel firm. You see that one on page 26. Okay, marketers not allowed to fix fuel prices. This is according to PPPRA, and the details can be found on page 27 of Nigerian Tribune. Marketers not allowed to fix fuel prices. Alright, above masthead, I have Nigeria records over 125 grid collapses in 7 years. And we see some of the details in front page. The rest is on page 26. CBN releases guidelines for assessing health research. Find it on page 27. Alright, come down with me now as I go to a story below the leading story. COVID-19, Nigeria's 100-day journey by NCDC. You see it on page 3. Task force arrests COVID-19 patient who escaped from Imo at Ondo. That's on page 30. Anambra community banishes 25 women for alleged support for cult activities. You see it also on page 30. And the story below the picture, stock markets. Investors lose 119 billion naira in 5 days. Investors lose 119 billion naira in 5 days. That story is on page 27. And the next story, Ondo, ripples in PDP as Akeredolu's deputy may resign this week. That story is on page 24. Ripples in PDP as Akeredolu's deputy may resign this week. Story on page 24. Alright, by the right side of the picture, insecurity, foreign powers sabotaging federal government. This is according to the Senate President, and you see the details from front page to page 2 of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. Alright, we make a pause here for a quick break. We'll be right back. Please stay tuned.
There are a lot of false information about the coronavirus. These are the facts. People of all ages can be affected by the coronavirus. However, older people and people with pre-existing medical conditions such as asthma, diabetes, heart diseases are more vulnerable to the disease. It is not for old people alone. Gargling salt and warm water or chewing garlic and ginger cannot prevent the virus. Drinking alcohol, hot lemon, palm oil or chloroquine will not kill the virus. The virus cannot be transmitted through mosquito bites. Antibiotics do not work against the viruses. Antibiotics work only against bacteria. Boiling pineapple peels, lime and ginger does not kill the virus. Putting raw onions in rooms will not ward off the virus. Using or spraying Dettol, special oils and water all over your body cannot kill the virus. There is no scientific evidence that cooking, drinking or eating any of these is an effective treatment for coronavirus. Do not self-medicate and take responsibility by sharing only verified messages from health authorities such as NCDC, Federal Ministry of Health and WHO.
Alright, welcome back. It is still newspaper headlines on the ACNNTV. In case you're just joining, we shall continue with the Blueprint newspaper. Alright, let's go. National Assembly renovation. That's the latest story on Blueprint. Federal government slashes 37 billion naira request. OK's 9.2 billion naira. Federal government slashes 37 billion naira request. OK's 9.2 billion naira. Let's see the kickers. International politics worsening our insecurity. That's according to Ahmed Lawan, the Senate President. Says Ninth Assembly will ensure local government autonomy. Explains lawmakers' approval for federal government's foreign loans. Okay, get details on page 6 of on the Blueprint newspaper. And coming down, we see the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development. That is the picture. Hajia Sadia Omar Farouk with the Jigawa State Governor Badaru Abubakar, where they are distributing palliatives. Okay, coming down, IPOB using Christianity to wage war against Nigeria. This is an accusation from the presidency. You see it on page 5. Says group targeting UK, US, others for divisive campaign. Alright, move on. COVID-19, save media from total collapse. NGE tells federal government. You see it on page 5. On page 8, we have a story. 80 million naira Dubai trip. Obasa appears before Lagos Assembly panel. Page 5. Kaduna lockdown remains. El-Rufai addresses residents Tuesday. On page 14, we see arbitrarily billing. Court orders IBEDC to pay customer 2 million damages. Alright, that's the last story on the bottom strip. We'll move up above the lead story and below the masthead. 8 killed as troops repel attacks on 3 Benue communities. 3 bandits neutralized in Zamfara. Operational change is imminent, says Minister. And a foreign story here. China's oil demand boosts Nigeria's foreign reserves. China's oil demand boosts Nigeria's foreign reserve. See it on page 26. And finally, I didn't ask EFCC to probe Akpabio, says Omoagege. And that story is on page 8 of Blueprint newspaper. Okay, and that takes us to Leadership newspaper. Leadership newspaper. paper. COVID-19 forces states to slash 2020 budget. COVID-19 forces states to slash 2020 budget. Story on page 4 of the Leadership newspaper. Governors cut personnel, overhead costs, capital expenditure. Worshippers grapple with COVID-19 protocols as churches reopen in states. UK to reopen churches, mosques, June 15. WHO issues guidelines on use of locally made face masks. Okay. Like we saw in the previous paper, Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadiya Umar Farouk, with the Jigawa State Governor during distribution of palliatives to the beneficiaries. And beside that, we have COVID-19 update as at June 7, 2020. Confirmed cases 12,486. Discharged patients 3,959, while number of deaths is at 354. This is according to NCDC as recorded in Leadership newspaper. Edo Guba certificate scandal rocks PDP ahead of primaries. Get details in front page, rest on page 4. Below the picture, marketers have no power to fix fuel price, and this is according to PPPRA, page 25. Alright, still on bottom strip stories. Forex earnings under threat as export cargoes remain trapped in port roads. Forex earnings under threat as export cargoes remain trapped in port roads. Page 12. Tenure elongation. National Assembly Service Commission decide today. Page 34. And National Open University of Nigeria set to hold online matriculation for new students. Page 14. Presidency accuses IPOB of treason. That's on page 30. And that will allow us to move above the lead story and below masthead. Global oil demand must decrease by 9 meters per barrel. That is according to OPEC plus. Global oil demand must decrease by 9 million per barrel. Okay, according to OPEC plus, as Nigeria approves extension of crude production cut. Sorry, I will take that story. Global oil demand must decrease million barrel per dollar. Yes, OPEC plus insists as Nigeria approves extension of crude production cut. That story is on front page, but it's continued on page 6. Finally, on leadership, military airstrike kills dozens of bandits in Zamfara State. Page 20. Okay. Business Day newspaper. Business Day newspaper. Federal government to spend 2.3 trillion naira to fund its economic sustainability plan. Federal government to spend 2.3 trillion naira to fund its economic sustainability plan. All right. Story on page 31. Nigeria takes another unsteady step towards downstream deregulation. Page 31. Lack of KYC and BVN impede access to CBN's 50 billion naira COVID-19 fund. Story on page 30. Edo Guba, APC chieftain asks Buhari, Tinubu to stop Oshomole's impunity. APC chieftain asks Buhari, Tinubu to stop Oshomole's impunity. That story is on page 30. Okay, that's the last story on Business Day newspaper. And as I draw the curtain here, I will like to tell you that a new day begins with new possibilities, and with God, everything is possible. Thank you for watching. I remain Charles Philip Wakola. Bye-bye.
Introducing a new way to watch ACNN 24 hours on your mobile device. Download the VM Africa app for Android from Google Play Store and then install. Open.